Okay, good. Now we're live streaming. Hi, everyone. I'd like to call the Town of Rochester Town Board regular business meeting for August to order. Let's stand for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we've got Christina here with us tonight. Could you do the roll call?
Councilwoman Ciardi and Councilwoman Dale are both absent. So Councilwoman and Coleman.
Here.
Councilwoman Stevenson. Here. And Supervisor Now.
I'm here. Thank you. All right, so the first item on our agenda is the acceptance of the agenda. I do have some amendments. They're all deletions. If anyone has any additions, you can add them after I say so. The town board accepts the agenda. I'd like to make a motion that the town board accepts the agenda as prepared by the town supervisor with the following amendments. We're going to table the liaison reports until next week. We will be removing item J, which is the ADP agreement. And I'm also going to table the submission of the financial reports until next week. Anything else? Do I have that motion, or do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay. So, like I just said, we're gonna table the financial report. It's the first, and I've also been alone in the office all week, very sorely missing our bookkeeper, our amazing bookkeeper. So for correspondence, well, I think we've been receiving a lot of the same correspondence. I did receive a number of comments today regarding the short-term rental cap setting, which also seemed like maybe they were going off of some information from last year. So I thought we should probably address that later on when we're talking about the cap. I think the other thing I wanted to share, not quite correspondence, is the ribbon cutting ceremony for the rail trail was on Friday. And we had a really huge, a lot of people came and were very excited about the new improvements to our rail trail and how close they are to our park. And we were very lucky to be joined by our summer youth program, which was like the highlight of the day. So for supervisors updates, we have 4 open grants right now. So I'm planning on closing out the New York Rising tomorrow. I just have to submit a final report. The Bridge New York, Boyce Mill Bridge Road. Oh, I just realized I have another update. We have a final design that I'm hoping to bring to the board next month, but first we have to figure out the fee acquisitions. I have to figure out the fee acquisitions that are necessary to implement that design. So we don't want to approve that design until we know that that is going to go through. We did receive we've received Bridge New York funding for 2 more projects. So we applied for project 32 and we applied for the I'm forgetting exactly the location, about Colbert. We got both of those. So that's 1.75 million in funding. One of those is a 100% funded. And the other, I think, is the same as the Boyce Mill Bridge, which is 5% match. The county ARPA parks, that's the bathroom project. We are all clear for the septic. So our engineering firm did the test sites for the septic in the spot that we had sort of identified as a good location. And that looks like it's gonna be a perfect spot for that. For JCAP, our bid is still open, so that is where we're at with that. I wanted to give another supervisor update, which is going to be a demo. So I just wanted to give you an update on eCode 360. This is both for the board and for the public. I didn't get this set up, but I wanted to share that there's a lot of documentation on eCode 360 right now. And I wanted to do a demo for the board and for the public on how to access that, because I recognize that we can improve how information is accessed. But in the meantime, I think it's important to share. Okay, so let me do this for the Zoom. Okay, here we go. So all of our codes and ordinances and draft local laws are housed at eCode 360. So if you're on the town website, you go to codes and ordinances, and that takes you to a third-party hosting platform called eCode 360. That link has the RO1435. That would be our site. So in the past, when we schedule something for public hearing, the draft legislation goes up under public documents legislation. So some of what we're considering are these really, really large files, and we currently don't have a great way of sharing those directly on our town website. So I am using this category as a way of getting information out there so that we have a shareable link. So right now, under legislation, there's a category, as you can see, community preservation plan documents. That's the plan document and the maps that supported the local laws that we had public hearings on. If you scroll down, there's a new category called draft legislation for consideration. This is stuff that is being presented to the town board that we will be scheduling, that the idea is we would be scheduling a public hearing for, but it has not yet been scheduled for a public hearing. So I have that in the description. And then if you keep scrolling, draft local laws for public hearing, these are ones that have actually been scheduled for public hearing. So those are the iterations of those. And if we schedule some things for public hearing tonight, we will shift things down to that category. So I wanted to share also, just for the board and the public, what we have right here are the draft legislation for consideration. This is, these are mostly maps, so they're big data files. The first one is the visual representation of all the mapping that we did this year in response to public comment and public information sessions. So if you click on the first one, this is the actual zoning map that we were talking about we needed in order to schedule a public hearing. So I think it's a long time to load. Probably gonna take a long time to load. I also have a web link, but I'm working to make sure that that's really user friendly. But this is what the public can use now and what the board can use now. Now, we wanted to go one step further. So this is the map. This is the visual representation. If we were to schedule a public hearing for a local law, it would be for this map. All the overlays have been created with this draft map. At the bottom, zoning map change updated proposal data, July 2024. This is the SBL data. So anyone that wants to kind of see the data, this is exactly what was used to create that map. You can do a Control F on this to search by SBLs. So it's a searchable PDF. So I just wanted to share that kind of new, I think I might continue to work with a little bit because these categories are a little funky. But I just wanted to share that with the board and the public. That's an update to how we're getting some of our information out. And now I will stop.
So what do we do if we have something that's scheduled for public hearing is closed, but it hasn't been voted on? Should we have a third category? So that
I've been thinking about that. We have a lot of open stuff that I'd like to. I think that's a good question.
Yeah, like you could do an opening closed category.
Yes.
Like you could show all the ones that are open so that we can know if it's
Yeah,
possible. I know
I
that it's
think-
hard for us. 65, right? But it looks
Yeah.
updated.
Once a public hearing is closed, the board can vote on it. Sometimes, oftentimes what we do is if we're not ready to vote on something, we leave it open. If we don't like it and we don't want to vote on it, we leave it open. So we have all this open stuff. If we were to close a public hearing, it would indicate that we were then gonna vote, which would either pass or fail, at which point we would delete it. So I think it's like, I like the idea of having a category of like local laws that are floating around. I don't know, Mary Lou, maybe we can, I don't know how to deal with, we have all those local laws that were from the zoning code, for example, that are public records, but they're just taking up
Right, but they're not part of the actual law, which is what E-code is for. You could probably, after you have a public hearing, make some kind of indication, public hearing closed.
Yeah, okay.
And then after you've voted on it, whether it's a, affirmative or if you vote it down, then it either goes into the code or it disappears, but the record will always be in the town clerk's office.
Right, yeah. But I do like the idea of working with E-code more, and it might be that we need to make a new page category for some of the stuff, but I wanted to keep the link that we had we printed in the letter, which was the legislation.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Also, I wonder if we should name that map so it's clear that that's a revised map. That's not the same map that was in the original public hearing. So we should say like revised after whatever, revised after blah, 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 public hearing. So it's clear that that's new. And then the other thing just for the public is maybe we can do an announcement that we're gonna have the info sessions. So like, that will all be explained.
Yes.
Were you gonna do that?
It's my next agenda item. That's great. Okay, so my next agenda item is upcoming agendas. So we're keeping to the same cadence that we've had. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I feel like our workshop meeting should be our first meeting, but let's think about that. Yeah, I'm like,
on this board.
it should be the first Thursday and then the business meeting should.
So rule that.
So maybe we think about that next week. So we have an August workshop meeting, that's next week. That's the 8th. Currently, we have 4 board members scheduled to attend. So, only one of you.
Dibs. Dibs. I have not gone once.
Yeah, we need a calendar. Okay.
I want my attendance record for this year.
August is this really bonkers month. So our audit meeting is the 29th. So, that's like obviously the last Thursday. So we've got that meeting. Then we scheduled our information sessions for August 21st at 6:30 p.m. here. So that's our first information session. And again, that is to review the mapping changes. And I have more that I want to say on how we should be scheduling public hearings and stuff, but that will be the first one. And the second one will be the Saturday the 24th at 10 a.m. So those are our, currently, we have 5 meetings this month, including this one, and the 2 information sessions, which are official meetings. In the notice for those meetings, as we all discussed, we decided we will be streaming the information sessions, and we are allowing anyone to participate via Zoom, so it will be a hybrid meeting. So also, just an update for the board, the letters are going to go out tomorrow. They're going out way past when I thought, because I was waiting on the county to give me the updated parcel owner information, because there's been a lot of sales. And I got that, but the mail merge is done. The letters are, I'm combing through and making sure that all the letters are correct, but I'm hopeful that I can get those printed and start to get those emailed tomorrow, so that there's some time for people to receive those before those sessions. And if we need to schedule more information sessions, we can always do that. Okay, now we're up to attorney for the town report, Mary Lou.
Okay, I'm working on a code enforcement matter with Mike Bannock and with, excuse me, Jerry Davis, and we're gathering evidence right now. I don't want to go any more than that, because I certainly don't want to alert anyone that they might be getting some sort of complaint coming up. I am going to send all of you the information for adopting or changing a 2-way street to a 1-way street, because this is something you were considering with it's Scenic Road, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Scenic Road. So I've got that research done. I just have to get it written up for you. Also, the DeJager subdivision was approved by the planning board in the spring, and it is subject to certain conservation things. Their attorney has sent me a whole lot of documents, which I'm reviewing now to see if they need any changes. That will be something that once they're set, will need to be approved by the town board. So I'm hoping to be able to get you a final copy for next week.
Great.
And then all the other things you guys write to me about.
Okay.
Okay,
Great. Thanks, Mary Lou.
you're welcome.
Christina, do you have anything to report?
There's nothing to report.
Nothing to report. Okay. I don't have a formal report from the highway department, but I'll see if there's something next week. And we are tabling department updates and liaison reports until next week. So that brings us to the public comment portion of our meeting. What? Oh, sure. Thank you, Michael. So this is the practice of our regular business meeting, that we offer a time during the meeting for the public to address the board on any matter that they would like. And again, comments are part of the public record, and they are addressed to the board directly. You're speaking to the board when you are participating in our public comments. So is there any members of the public here today that would like to make a comment?
Will the Airbnb stuff be part of this, or later on next coming down on the list?
We are setting the cap as we do every August, but that it's not there's no public hearing or anything like that. So if you wanted to make a comment regarding that issue, this would be the time to do it.
Hey, we've been doing it for 7 years, and it's not a house, it's our home, but we rent the barn out, and we just wanted to make sure that everything is still, we're on site, we don't leave the premises when people are there, and we're hearing rumors that, it's gonna start changing, so we just wanted to be informed on if it would affect us in any negative way. We also agree that too many houses are being sold strictly for Airbnb, limiting local people, which, you know, we feel bad for. But there are people that do it as an accessory to their home, you know, ordinarily, we're not taking housing from anyone else. And we were just hoping, you know, we'll do it seasonally, we were hoping the cost of the fee for it will stay normal, otherwise, you know, it's almost to the point where it doesn't pay, you have to weigh if it's worthwhile, so we were hoping, you know, if you could keep the fees low for the people that are just doing it seasonally, that would be a big help.
Is there anyone else present that would like to address the board?
Claire is gonna come with me too.
Okay. Oh, so just as long as no one else is here present, then Claire, would you like to address the board?
Yes, hi. I have a letter that I want to read from on behalf of the Housing Committee, the Town of Rochester Housing Committee. So I'd like to read that. So the Housing Advisory Committee recommendations to the town board regarding short-term rentals. We make the following recommendations regarding the issuance of permits for short-term rentals for 2025. The town should reissue permits for all current permit holders who have complied with all legal requirements during the past year. 2, the town should conduct a serious review of local short-term rental law and compliance mechanisms in light of questions that have been raised as to the impact of short-term rentals, have on long-term rentals and housing stock more broadly, as well as issues involving short-term rentals that are operating without an STR permit. I'm saying STR now to make it shorter, issued by the town of Rochester. For the coming year, 2025, permits should be limited to those current permit holders and any others that may be required to be reissued under current law, local law, I mean. No new permits should be issued this year. However, the town should maintain a wait list of property owners who have expressed interest in obtaining a permit should one or more become available in the future. And our context to these 3 recommendations is A, there's a lack of affordable housing that impacts residents and local businesses. In the last year, housing availability crises have not improved, and it remains nearly impossible for recent college graduates returning home, local employees, and job hunters seeking opportunities in our town to find long-term rentals. Due to the market-driven increases in property values, fewer and fewer town residents who are local earners or work in the town can afford to buy a house. The estimated 340 short-term rentals in the town, and I'll talk about that in paragraph B below, are limiting the number of homes available for long-term rentals and drive competition on properties available for sale, which increase costs. Local businesses are having difficulty retaining employees because long-term housing is so limited. The modest income of small businesses, but business employees, agriculture and service industry workers is not sufficient enough to be able to afford rent for the few available units in the town. B, too many short-term operators are flouting local law and not, excuse me, and not registering with the town. According to our recent town data, there are 135 short-term rentals registered with the town of Rochester, with the town. 70 are non-owner occupied and 65 are classified as owner occupied. However, data from the County Department of Finance suggests there are many SDRs in Rochester operating without a local SDR permit. There are 340 hosts with properties situated in the town of Rochester that Ulster County has identified through a data mining contract with a private vendor. Of these 340, only 196 possess a C of O, a certificate of authority to collect county sales tax. Thus, there could be over 205 STR units that have not applied or been granted a town permit. 340 minus 135 equals 205. And a substantial number, 144 that have not registered with either the county or the town. Failing to register SDRs with the town is of serious concern for several reasons.
Claire, do you want one of us to finish reading for you?
Maybe it might sound better.
You want to finish? Or
Do you have it in front of you?
I have it on my phone, but
I was gonna say, I don't know who you want.
I have- let me just, where did we leave off? Claire?
I'm in the second paragraph of B.
B?
I'm in the third paragraph of B.
B, okay.
B is in beautiful.
Thank you very much, for, struggling through that, appreciate it. Failing to register STRs with the town, by the way, Ken Stevens, another member of the Housing Committee. I appreciate Claire reading, she's home, actually dealing with COVID, so she's a real trooper, thank you. Following up, failing to register STRs with the town is of serious concern for several reasons. First, it undermines the spirit of the law, which is to A, ensure that our residential zones remain places where our neighbors can peacefully reside, other than zones where business, in this case, hospitality, predominates and encroaches on that amenity. And B, to ensure that our supply of housing is not significantly reduced by these competing, often more lucrative uses, which often drive up pricing throughout the community. Second, it creates an uneven playing field, disadvantaging those who do play by the rules and pay the legislative fees and taxes that are established by the law. Third, it undermines the ability of the town to monitor the health and safety of such unregistered units. Fourth, it hampers the ability of the town to obtain critical information in order to gauge the quantity, type, and ownership status of STRs in the town. Some increased level of enforcement may be necessary to meet the goals of the 2021 law. C, how many and what types of STRs are appropriate for the town of Rochester? According to the most recent data we have obtained from the 2024 Assessors Roll, there are 3,321 households in the town. Using only the county data on the number of hosted STRs in the town, 340, this means that as much as 10% of the available housing stock in the town is devoted to STRs. This is without even considering anecdotal evidence that the number of unregistered STRs may be even higher than what the county has already documented. The Ulster County Smart Housing Initiative has determined that regulating the number and type of STRs can be an important tool to address housing availability and costs. See generally, and then there's a website that the Housing Smart County group has. The town has already endorsed being part of the Smart Housing Initiative for a number of reasons, including being better able to meet the community's needs and increasing access to support, grants, and funding for local housing initiatives. The county's position is supported by numerous studies, some of which are collected on their website. The county currently recommends a 1 to 2% cap on non-owner occupied units. And generally recommends limiting the number of units to one per applicant for both types of units. Using the 3,321 number for total households, the town of Rochester would meet the 1% threshold with just 33 non-owner occupied STRs, and 66 permits would meet the 2% threshold. With a total of 70 non-owner occupied permits currently, the town is already above the county's 2% maximum recommendation for non-owner occupied units. And finally, D, a careful review of the current local laws appropriate. We would also like to recommend that the town review Local Law 3 of 2021 to assess whether any changes are needed in light of the experiences from the past several years. The local STR law was passed in the midst of the pandemic, when people were flocking to our town to enjoy the space and fresh air, and with it came an increase in the number of STRs. This brought both new opportunities for tourism, along with concerns over the health and safety of these new accommodations and the extent to which the shifts in use comported with the town's comprehensive plan. In the ensuing years, home prices have risen far faster than local wages, and the availability of full-time, long-term rental housing has diminished. At the same time, some local residents may have legitimate concern at having lost an opportunity to participate in the economic benefits of the STR boom, while non-resident speculators may be holding not just one, but 2 permits. It is not our intention to recommend specific changes in the local law at this time, but there are some areas which we strongly recommend that the town board explore further this year in a carefully considered manner with input from the community. 1, in some nearby communities, lotteries have been introduced to provide some measure of fairness in allocating STR permits when the demand outstrips the availability. 2, in other towns, local governments have endorsed multi-year phase-outs of some or all STRs, thereby providing some measure of relief for those with a vested interest in an existing STR. Other localities have outright banned STRs to those who do not live locally. Some research suggests that certain types of STRs most impact the availability of housing for full-time renters. For example, there may be much less need to limit permits involving the rental of part of a resident's home as opposed to a full house rental, as that is less likely to displace an available full-time rental. Intuitively, it would seem that such partial in-home rentals with shared facilities are less likely to adversely impact overall housing costs. 5, the town may also want to consider limiting permits to 1 per property owner, consistent with the county's recommendation. And last, the towns may also want to explore mechanisms to limit the number of days in a given year that any permitted STR could operate in order to limit purely speculative use of the town's housing stock. Finally, as noted above, there are legitimate concerns over the extent of enforcement of any local law that must be considered. We recognize that the town has traditionally been, that tourism has traditionally been important to our local economy and remains important. But a town policy which would encourage long-term rentals would in turn help alleviate the shortage of employees able to work in the town. A limited pause in the issuance of new STR permits in this coming year is a reasonable step while the town determines the best balance of STRs to long-term rentals for our town's unique local economy. Thank you for consideration. That's the Town of Rochester Housing Advisory Committee. There are 5 individuals. Thanks.
there anyone else who'd like to speak during our public comment portion of the meeting? Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have anything prepared. I was hoping to to pull some things together while I've been here today. But my name's Emily. I've come a few times. I was at the recent zoning meeting as well. And I have been a property owner since 2015 here in Hamilton. I've been renting my property since 2017. In the beginning, just like many others, my property was purchased for my own weekend use, basically. And I think that there are a tremendous number of properties that are purchased in that way, and that is a big part of the housing market in our area. I understand affordable housing is an issue, but I also strongly feel that a large number of the homes that are currently being used as Airbnbs, also a large number of the homes have a permit, but may not even be renting currently. I have a friend actually who's had a permit for 3 years and never rented her property. So I do think that solely going off of the number of permits that may have been issued is not the best way to gauge, the number of active STRs that we have in the area. But anyway, going back to myself and my own property, I love this town. I originally purchased what was considered to be a 3-season home. And after the improvements that we made, our very lovely assessor decided to up our taxes. And so I'm now contributing very nicely, up to 200% on my taxes. And I contribute a lot to the community via the Airbnb, that I host in the area. My property is only 350 square feet. I think that there's a lot of properties that you say, oh, we're shorting affordable housing, but it's not something that's meant to be long-term housing or affordable housing. And as I said, a number of homes, were purchased by people that don't necessarily need the extra income, although they definitely appreciate it when it comes in. But they've opened up their weekend homes that they're going to hold on to anyway, to then bring tourists and tourism to our area, which also supports the local businesses. It is a catch-22, and I'm not here to tell you how to fix it. But not only do we obviously need homes for the workers that are, running these businesses, but they also need the business coming in from the tourism. And if we suddenly limit the Airbnbs, the number of days, for instance, I think would be really detrimental. Say like only being able to list 180, my property typically books out at 90 to 95% occupancy. So limiting the number of days would really not make it feasible for me to continue to operate. And I feel that I've been, screened. I screen professional management companies, screen their guests coming in. I think that it is very important to continue to enforce, the permitting process. I think we should all be doing it legally. I also think it's important, to enforce, what's it called, like infringements or whatever, like people who are, maybe having repeated noise complaints and different things like that. Like nobody needs a host that's not responsible owning a house in the area or operating a short-term rental in the area. However, there's lots of hosts that are doing it properly, and that does bring a tremendous benefit to our community with the tourism dollars that it provides. Additionally, I support a lot of local residents as well. I've got my handyman, I've got my cleaning team who's local as well, and I pay them, over $50,000 a year for my property to keep it running. And I believe that my team sent in comments, at least that they had intended to, but it's limiting the number of days or limiting basically the current number of short-term rentals that we have that are already in compliance, that are operating, would harm them, and their income and their way of living. So I really think that we need to be able to continue on those who are operating properly. I mean, I was part of the original 2021 grandfathered in, so I really think that a lot of the things that you're proposing most likely wouldn't apply to me. However, professionally, segueing into, I actually I'm an interior designer, and a large portion of my business, even though I'm now located over in Dutchess County, a large portion of my business is helping either weekend homeowners or short-term rental hopefuls properly set up their homes, which is why I've been so involved in trying to, communicate the different aspects of our current code, because I want to be involved in helping people do it correctly. And there is a huge difference, between someone who's willing to put that time and energy into making sure they're providing like a great and welcoming environment for guests versus someone who's just, opening the doors and allowing parties. Like the level of homes that we have in Vermont, once again, it's typically not something that is affordable housing. There's a lot of people with really high-end homes who are bringing high-end tourism dollars to the area. They're supporting businesses that someone might typically not be able to afford to go down at. For instance, Arrowwood, Westwind, even like Helder Farms. Without the amount of tourism that we're bringing to the area, those businesses wouldn't survive. So, yeah, I mean, overall, very invested in seeing, our short-term rental properties being run correctly. There's been a huge disconnect between, in the past, under, previous town supervisors, there's been a huge disconnect in communication between the law and its interpretation with code enforcement. I mean, owner occupied has been misconstrued and needs to be, clarified. Like the cap, I was even told at one point last year when I reapplied that the cap was actually, oh no, like our 66 unit cap doesn't include the grandfathered unit. Like it was so many different things were being said. The town supervisor was under the impression that those had been sent out to current permittees, that had applied in 2021. He thought that there had been a notice that had been sent out for people to, work on renewing their permit. None of this was done. And so there was just a huge scramble and confusion on what was going on, there's just a lot of disconnect. So regardless of how we move forward, I would strongly advise that, communication, like very clear communication happen with the implementation of this law. Let owners know when there's, like, you have our information, the permit. Like, let us know if there's a cap discussion that's up, that's coming up. Let us know if our permit is going to expire. And I know that this is all stuff that takes more time and takes more effort, but ideally some of that could be like auto notification set up or something versus like man hours going into it. But overall, this is just me, like a concerned owner wanting to do things correctly. And I've spent so much time trying to figure out how to do that. And I think the majority of STR owners out there are not, these giant spectator or whatever, like people buying up multiple properties. It's people who have a weekend home because they love and care about the area and they want to share that and open that up to other people as well. Now, I can't say that I occupy my home for part of the year because I love the area so much I bought right across the river. But I shouldn't be penalized just because I still own the home that, originally brought me to the area. And I should be able to continue to rent and bring tourism and tourism dollars. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who's here tonight that wants to address the board?
Sure, I'll address the board as well. I missed a lot of it. But similar to Emily, I work in a job where I'm traveling a lot of the year. I work in tech sales. And during COVID, I bought a house here in Wisconsin, and I'm traveling most of the year. I just came from the airport now. And I have clients in Georgia, clients in North Dakota, South Dakota, and all across the country. And this house that I have on Burn Road has been a house that's created a lot of memories for my wife and I. But when I'm not here, it's a place that I like to share with the other people and share with the community. And short-term rentals have allowed me to do this. And maybe some years I'm here where I'm owner occupant, some years I'm not. And I don't think that there should be a ban. I think that over the last couple of years, the process has been extremely unclear. You know, we'll call the city, we'll ask if we're in compliance, they'll say we're in compliance. You'll ask how many permits are there, they'll say there's, I think they said 49 permits or 50 permits, I don't remember the exact
Was
number.
it 66?
66, and I remember them saying, yeah, but we issued 89. I said, how does that make any sense? I asked, you know, are we grandfathered in? We've followed all the rules, we've done all the tests, I'm not some big Airbnb owner, like I mentioned, no one, Justin's not, Emily's not, how we just wanna stay in compliance, and it's been really difficult. Because people are like, oh, you don't get grandfathered in, but if you had a permit last year, we get a permit this year. And so it's been a frustrating process, a scary process, because I don't know if I'm gonna, the way I'm able to afford this is to partially rent it out when I'm not here, and that's how I think it makes sense for my family. But if I lose this, you know, I might have to lose this house that I love so much. And I don't think, I think caps are acceptable, and I think it's important the town finds ways to enforce it. I know in Kingston, they've found ways to enforce it, but the people that have been following the rules for years are being penalized because some other people aren't following the rules, or because the town doesn't have a way to police this. And I think all of us speak together as we're willing to help the town. We're willing to do whatever it takes for the town, to allow the town to enforce the policies. If they think that there's a cap, whatever that cap should be, as long as the people that have been in good faith for the last couple of years and have been operating to the standards, you know, we shouldn't be penalized.
Thank you. So, I think that was the last person who wanted to address the board during our public comment time. Okay. So then we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is town board member time. So I know I'd like to address some things here. Does anyone else want to?
Sure.
Sure. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify a little of what we're doing here tonight with the setting the cap on our agenda. We did receive a lot of public comments about the cap, and I think there was some misunderstanding, or I know like the Housing Advisory Committee's letter from last year got circulated, and I got a lot of people responding to that letter. And then some people thought that we're actually updating the law or trying to stop short-term rentals tonight, and that's not what is on our agenda. So we have a local law that regulates short-term rentals, and in that law, the town board sets the cap for permits of non-owner occupied units in August of every year.
New permits, right?
Of new permits. Anyone that has an existing permit and is up for renewal is not subject to the cap. So that's why
I don't mean to speak at it.
you cannot speak right now. It's not a back and forth. And if you have any questions and want to have a conversation about it, but I was speaking and I want to continue saying what I was saying. That is in the law. It is in the law, and there's no proposal to change the law. So anyone that has an existing permit, as long as they're compliant, your renewal permit is not subject to any cap. So that some of the confusion is that's how the grandfathering works in as well. So in that sense, the grandfathering units sort of got lumped in to that, because anyone it could be next year, it could be last year, but anyone who's up for renewal and has a new application, which is outlined in our code, then they are not subject to any cap that the town board sets. So that is the intent of the law. And what I wanted to say is if there is some sort of confusion or misapplication or communication breakdown with how that is being handled, that's definitely something that I am, working on with code enforcement. And I'm very committed to making sure that communications are very clear around the permitting process. The law itself outlines when permits can be applied for every year, what is and is not subject to the cap, what the board should be using to think about the cap, and it outlines all of that. So we are using, as a town board, as the legislative board, we're using that plus the assessment role, plus the numbers that we're seeing. That's what we're using, a data-driven approach to think about setting this cap, which would be for new applications. So if someone had an application and then they didn't reapply, they're considered a new application. You're not considered a new application if you are renewing within the renewal window every year. So I just wanted to say that there's no call to end non-owner occupied units in what our current law doesn't even allow us to do that, because if you have a permit for a non-owner occupied unit, you are not subject to the cap. So I just wanted to clarify that. We are going to be having this conversation later on in the meeting, and it is a conversation that is solely for the board. And if we come to a consensus, we will be voting on it tonight. If we aren't able to come to consensus, then we will table it and put it on our agenda for next week when we have another board member present. But that's just, I just wanted to say that because we got a lot of feedback from letters that it was clear that there was this fear that we were somehow going to make this use no longer allowed, and that is not, we don't have the ability to do that tonight. That would be a longer legislative process, and that's absolutely not what we're doing. But what we are doing is not a local law. It is just something that is given in the local law we do through resolution in August of every year. Charlotte. Well, we've never done.
So it's obviously this meeting is exactly what the law
It's
said,
what it
so,
says.
yeah.
We've also never done it by then.
We thought, yeah, this is the first year we're doing it by then. I was just taking notes on some things I heard during public comment. One thing I heard was that this doesn't affect affordable housing. I've never stated specifically that affordable housing is the issue in this town that drives my arguments for the short-term rental cap. Personally, it's any form of long-term housing. Doesn't have to specifically be affordable. It's a very specific form of housing that's rented to someone who makes less than 80% of the median income of the area. For the suggestion to figuring out which Airbnbs are actually active, I think the best determination for the board and if we're not going to base it off of our internal numbers of permits, we'd go with the 250 that were data mined then as the active ones that are actively posting. If we're going to try to base our number off of that comment from the public. And I'm gonna leave my comments at that for now, because the rest of them.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later too.
I can hold my comments until it's.
Okay, great. So we'll move on then. So now we're moving on to resolutions. So I have edits for this resolution. Christina, okay. Didn't include all of the various meetings that we had. So I'll make the motion and I'm gonna read the motion with my edits. So I'd like to make a motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board accepts the minutes of the July 2nd, 2024 regular business meeting, the July 11th public hearings, the July 11th, 2024 workshop meeting, the July 16th, 2024 special meeting, the July 25th public hearing, and the July 25th, 2024 audit meeting as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay. Our next resolution, does anyone want to do the donations or do you want me to? You are not. but
Okay,
you
I'll
can-
do it if I'm
you can
not.
add yourself.
Oh, no, I don't want.
Oh, I
to
do it
I
yourself.
don't want to do it.
Okay. Okay.
So I would like to make a motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board accepts donations in the amount of $30 from Campers. $30 for teacher money
For the, yeah.
for the campers,
Oh, never mind.
and that's from, it's not there. And then $40 from Christina Schoonmaker for the summer program. Mohawk Preserve, $1,000 from them. The Rondout Valley Education Foundation, $1,142.10. And St. Pauli's Textile for $137.87.
I'll second. Oh, wait.
That's it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Okay, oh, my numbers are messed up. That's funny. Appointment of an Environmental Conservation Commission member. So I'll make a motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board appoints Matthew Dell to serve on the Environmental Conservation Commission in a term through December 31st, 2025.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay, motion carries. So we're gonna do it. I wanted to do this through board approval, authorizing an increase of schedule hours. So I'd like to make a motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board authorizes the position of assessor's aide to increase from 35 hours per week to 40 hours per week, effective immediately until September 13th, 2024. Do I have a second?
I'll say.
So for discussion, this is prep work that's needed for the reval. So it's time sensitive and there's a lot of data pulling and then mailing out of data that needs to be done. And so they came to me saying that if we could have 5 extra hours, this would help get it done within the time frame.
So they're still gonna do their normal lunch and breaks and stuff like that.
Yes.
Around there, okay.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Okay, so now we're up to the cap. I was thinking, I know this is a little not like what we like to do, but, or what we're necessarily supposed to do, but I thought maybe if the board's okay with going a little off agenda and just starting with the discussion first,
I'd like.
just because we, huh?
What's the proposal? You mean you want to have that discussion? Like propose something and then have a discussion about it? Yeah, that's fine.
Without doing motions or it just.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, last year we set it at 66. And that was the 2%? Was that what that was? What did
That
we?
was 66, yeah, that was 2% then, because 66.
Okay.
We only increased I got the assessor and didn't forward it to you guys, I just got it on Tuesday night. The breakdown of coding of parcels, I originally got the full assessor's roll, which if you looked at it,
Yes,
it's very
so, yeah.
hard to find and pull data from, so I asked Joanne to pull the data from me to get me the numbers. That she had done the same thing last year, and we only increased by 17 parcels. Until we increase by 100, we can add, or at least until we increase by 50 parcels. Me personally, I'm not okay with increasing over 66.
What's the, so I guess what is the, do you have what 2% is? And we're trying to keep the 2% for non-owner occupied.
Correct. And that's still matching with what the county's recommendations are for housing smart communities. Sorry, I just find an email with it.
We currently have 60, no, 70. So of the current operating permits, there are 70. 74?
74 non-owner. Not including
not including the
grandfather.
grandfather.
Well, so basically, all data is integrated because initially the grandfather permits aren't subject to the cap, right? The initial cap. And that's true, or that is true, but the way the law reads is that no renewal permit is subject to the cap.
So you're saying that 74 is inclusive of grandfather?
And all renewals, so that this would be the cap, if we're setting a cap, it's for new applications. And it would, so what we're trying to do is figure out what's 2%, and is that more than 74? And then we could set the cap for the difference. Right? That's what we're saying.
We're
So
doing-
there's 74 currently permitted non-owner occupied short-term rentals.
Not including the grandfather.
No,
Including, it's
Okay.
everything. Those are all, because anyone that has a, yes, yeah. Anyone that has a current permit that's operating, if they renew, they're not subject to the cap. So all renewals. So what we're saying is, we could do anything from setting the cap at 0 to whatever, but anyone who's currently operating, if they renew within the renewal window, is not subject to that cap.
Correct, and that's how it was last year
Yeah.
too, is anyone, if they're staying
Yeah.
compliant and renew before
Yeah.
their term. at the end of the
So
year.
what we were talking about is using that 2% number. If we wanted to add new permits, we would want them to, our goal is to stay under 2%, which is what we're trying to do. And so whatever that number is what we would use as the guide.
66.16
Okay, so that's why we,
for this year, based off the assessor's goal, which is, that's also what the number we are supposed to base the percentage of in the local laws, specifically the assessor's goal document that these numbers were pulled from.
That's 2%. What's the total amount of properties?
3,000, or these are strictly residential properties, residential parcels. 3,308. That are active resident
Parcels or dwellings?
parcels. Yes, parcels.
And 2% of that is 66%.
Yes, 66.16.
What's 3%?
3%. Uh, 99.24.
I did have in my head this was a 2-year program.
It is.
It is a 2-year permit. At least that's what mine said last, I thought.
No, it's total says 2.
Yeah, it says 2 somewhere. It's under renewal is where it's listed how much time, how often.
It is G2.
Why were you wondering 3%?
No, and so you're saying 2% is part of being considered a housing smart community? Is that like the county, is that something that helps qualify us for that?
Correct.
And last year we set it to 0, but everything that was existing permits was able to renew. I can't remember why we didn't
No, we
just set
said
it.
it, we said it,
We
it's
said it.
66.
So we said it
I've
at
been voting for
2%.
61, because 61 was. I know me and Adam had a back and forth last year, and Councilman Paddock had a back and forth, and he was like, we should have 5 new ones tonight. After 2 hours gave in.
I'm trying to remember, I thought what we were, I'm trying to remember what we There, so basically, anyone that the 56 that are in operation right now wouldn't need to renew until next year. So the only ones that would be, we just have the ones, the 18. Those are the,
Yeah, so we're technically 18 over a 2% cap right now, so if we set the
we're
cap,
eight.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, 74
74, but you just have 56.
is what we, they're not up for, they just got their permits this year.
56 are.
66 is 2%, 74 is where we're at today. Is there any reason of not looking at the concerns about housing? I know that's what this is about. Is there a reason to have it at 2% related to the county or anything with housing? The housing smart.
Well, we don't get credit to move up levels.
That's what
Our
I'm
law
saying.
doesn't count.
So 2% is one of the
It's not being housing smart, so.
checks towards housing.
Is it, does it have to be in the law, or does this data mining, I guess that's,
It has what we said, what the legislative body said, so what's in the law. So ours isn't a specific cap number in the law, it's set every year, so like every year I have to send in our resolution cap for us to update it if we don't keep, since we do it every year technically, I would probably. It's the first year of us having that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I agree with the idea that having a cap and not permitting the permit is not going to necessarily mean that you're opening up housing opportunities. We have a lot of things in the law that I think are important to restrict the amount of these. So you can't be a corporation, and own like 20 short-term rentals. You can't like run that as a business. If you're an individual owner, you can only have one non-owner occupied, one owner occupied.
That's not what's happening.
No, I know, but I mean, there's enforcement issues, and also like I don't think preventing somebody from having a permit is going to fix the housing problem. Like, the housing problem is not just a problem in Rochester or Ulster County; it's like nationwide. There's issues. So I can see why people feel that there's a reason to increase that and allow more units. At the same time, I think 2% is reasonable, and people that are currently operating have the ability to do that. People who are non-owner occupied or owner occupied parcels can continue to operate. So people who have other, properties or renting out a room. So, I think 2% is a reasonable number to go with, but I just want to be clear on, like, this isn't necessarily helping solve the housing problem, because I think people will just operate illegally, or they're going to, just have the houses sit vacant without the permit. So I don't know what the right answer is, but I'm kind of curious what the other board members think too. So I would also be fine tabling this until at least next week.
Sure, I'm fine with the 2%. Just as a rebuttal to what you said, Michael. Most of the motels in this town and in this area are now all DSS temporary housing because there's such a lack of housing. I have someone who had a full loan to buy a home in this area approved from RECO that 5 years later is still living in a motel because there was no affordable homes for that person to use their home voucher for. Maybe we should have the actual motels be motels again in town to be able to offer short-term rental services and not turn things that are zoned residential and houses and properties that are zoned residential be turned into businesses. I know corporations can't own them, but if you're not living on the property, then this is a business.
Yeah.
If it's not something in addition to your home that you occupy for more than half the year, this is a business. You are operating out of a residence. It's not, you're operating a motel out of a house.
Yeah.
It's not the same. So I understand why you think that it might not correlate. There's also a lot of factual data that backs up how short-term rentals have caused a decrease in long-term housing supply from the county, from the state, to support that information. And yeah, so I mean, I'm fine with 2%. I'm happy to stay compliant within the county's number. I also think that, like I said, grandmother ones are issues strictly non-owner occupied. That's where we have the most issues of not being able to reach the people who are supposed to be the contacts here. There's not responsibility on certain ends and like trying to screen everyone that comes into there. We had an Airbnb burned down in this town because of a safety issue that was never even insured. So Airbnb isn't even screening the people that they are letting list these homes if they're safe, or if they're even insured to protect the people who are gonna stay in them. I think that it's not a good system, it doesn't work well, and I think that it does directly affect. I work exclusively outside of my job here, I work exclusively in the lower middle class to under poverty line. And that's the people that this directly affects. I know you think that it might not add housing, like yes, someone who has a Section 8 voucher to purchase a house is going to buy a $1 million mansion. But they might buy the cottage that's on an acre, that's a perfectly like normal, been there for 30 years building. It's very frustrating to hear when we talk about short-term rental cap and things like that, how divided our town is for me, and that there's a very large section of town that isn't able to think out of their tax bracket towards how these things affect the rest of our community as a whole. So I'm happy to go with 2%. That's the end.
So, okay, so I think this is the discussion I think we need to keep having because it comes up, and I think we really, anything we can do, to help housing, I think we should. When we're talking about the 2% number and the cap. So now I remember what we did last year. So what we did last year was and I remember because I think this was me, because I just started thinking of this, I was like, oh, that's what we did last year. Okay. So the recommendation of the Housing Advisory Committee is to say 0 new applications, create a waiting list, and in our law, renewal applications shall never be subject to any cap. So that's their recommendation, is that the new application be 0. Anyone that is up for renewal can renew, but there would be no new application. So that's their recommendation. What we did last year was we found out what that 2% number was. Because we thought, well, what if someone doesn't want to renew? Then a spot opens up. So that's why we phrased it that way.
Yeah, I knew we phrased it a certain way.
So we phrased it that way because if someone decided not to renew, then, and so what that did in effect was meant that, and we brought this up in the discussion and we decided it was okay, by setting a number, what that did in effect is because there's a 3-month time frame when people can apply. So what that meant was if anyone who's up for renewal could renew until the last day of the time frame, but they could issue new permits because it's so you could in effect end up with more than 66.
Because people can apply, this cap isn't towards anyone who applies right now this year.
Yeah.
It's towards-
Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah.
So it was like
I would go with that.
that.
Yeah.
That was what the intent behind that was like it was like a cap of what we did last year was not a cap of 0. It was like a floater valve.
Yeah, we made it so that it could
Yes.
that like things.
So
could be
we only issued though 56 permits. So
This year so far.
yeah. So there's still 10 permits available this year. So
But we still can't go over
66.
66.
Well, not anymore.
Yeah, so we are almost.
For new, if there
Oh,
were,
that's why we did
there's-
it that way, 'cause so that the last, what, I think it was like 8 weeks, that's where the 5 was that I
Yep.
argued with Adam. It was the last 5 we had
Yeah.
available for the year. He was like, well, people want those 5.
we
They
should
should
get-
have them for
Mhm.
next year, like the cap should roll over.
Yep.
And that's how we phrased it
Yes,
that way.
yeah.
I would prefer to not. If possible, but I'm not.
So that was, I was just complicated
Well,
it
if we-
more, I know, but.
But if we set it at 2%, that, I mean, it's smooth, doesn't matter.
Yeah, we can set it as a percentage, not a
We
number.
don't have to do that linguistic thing for that.
No, If
resolution.
you were to set it at 2%, it would mean the same thing, though. It would mean that, it would mean 66, but anyone that's up for renewal is not subject to the cap.
Right.
So what, in essence, what you're saying is,
So we're allowing 66 more with the 76.
No,
Or the 56. that
you're
currently
not, you're not,
Are.
right, but you're not.
Oh, so you're saying if 10 people now come that are new and get them, that's 66, and then the 10 that have existing permits are still allowed to renew.
The cap
Seven.
isn't on a single year, it's on the aggregate.
I know, but what I'm hearing you say is, if there's 56 people right now, there's 66 permits, 56 have reapplied. So there's 10 that haven't reapplied.
Or not even new, or just applied. There's just 10, there, on the spreadsheet, there's only 56 non-owner occupied that got a permit in 2024.
And we said no new permits.
No, we said, we did that conditional logic.
So if we do
Anyway.
0, it'll stay.
We could
at
set
the
it at
10
2%.
That are allowed for this year, and then it just won't add more next year.
We could set it at 2% for next year, which would be 66. Is it possible we would have more than 66 non-owner occupied next year?
So
Owner occupied doesn't count.
are you proposing we set the cap at 2% that could operate with a 2-year permit starting in 2025? Or are you saying the 2% should include the people that applied in 2024 that will be in operation through 2026?
I'm asking if the intent is to have a 2% cap, 66 non-owner occupied
For all of them.
parcels, how would we do that tonight?
We set it at 0 because
You-
they're still allowed, right?
Well, we can't because there's 74.
But they're all able to renew, so if we set it
Yeah.
at 2%, that's the cap at 66, and the 74 can renew, but
Yeah.
nobody new can apply.
Right. That's all, that's what we were trying to do last year, is say that it's, that way if people don't apply, then there would be available permits.
If they don't apply and we haven't had 66 yet.
Right.
But if we set it at, but hold on.
But if
though.
you
we
set
just
it at 0,
We still have the 10 if no one takes them in the cap.
Well, right now, yeah, they would, but they'd only be good through, yeah.
Oh, because they're only.
It is, it's not 2 years from when you get your permit, it's the calendar year. So it would be a 2024 permit that would get through 2025.
Okay, so we're saying, so right now we have 74. Correct. Active, non-owner occupied in town. We have technically 10 more left.
I'm
that
not,
applied, So that would be 84.
I actually need to. I am not completely confident that is the,
Then I would say that we set it at 0 so that we get a year break between this to try to help reset and balance this before we allow new ones in again. Because like I stated last year, and what I think went over Mike and Adam's head was that the whole point of the cap was the first year we did, what was it, 100? And then we did 50, but we never took away any from, like, we just kept adding every year. So I think we need a year to pump the brakes, to reevaluate, to see exactly how many actually. Because no matter what, we're over 2%, so we shouldn't be allowing any more next year of non-owner occupied. It doesn't matter previous years. Right now, there's actively the potential for 80 more allowed in town. So to me, that means that the cap needs to be 0 until that goes under 66, and then the town board at that time can set it back above.
we could also set it for.
I think, me personally, that's the only way that I see it solving this, to keep it under 2%. For the entirety of how many, we're not talking only year rotations, I mean actively one time in town.
Do we have to set it as a percentage? We don't, right?
No,
No, we have to set it as a number.
Well, we can set it, it doesn't,
So we could set the number, you're saying there's 74 active right now.
right, but only of that, 56 are a 2-year permit that was taken out this year. So they'll go through next year. So then there are 18 that have the 2023-2024 permit that will expire at the end of the year.
18 have 1 year remaining. What was the first one?
2 year.
No, how many?
56.
Okay.
So the 56 are, they're not up for renewal at all. And then this would just mean that only those 18 people would be able to,
Which would put us at 74 if they all do, which is 8 over. That's almost halfway to the next 3%. Almost.
But it doesn't matter if we set it at 66 or 2%, they can all still apply.
No, then another 66 can apply,
well,
unless we put conditional language.
yeah, it's,
So if we set it at 0,
there's
then
a
only if the
3-month
real applies.
the 3-month, there's a 3-month application.
Because we also have 10.
You know, I think that's wrong because of
Oh.
the aggregate thing.
Oh, gotcha, okay. But we still also potentially have a handful of ones that aren't up for renewal that can be new for this year for 2 years. We still have
So-
another 10 that are potential to, that I'm sure people after this meeting are gonna go and apply for, regardless of what we set the cap at to take those permits.
Sounds like we need to revisit this law. This is
I think we
crazy.
also need to revisit this law as a whole.
This is crazy. So I'm not understanding, you're applying for permits for next year, for 2025. So there's 3-month gap, so if people come right now and they're like, I want to apply for a permit, they should not be able to apply for a permit because we set it at 0 new permits, right? So they can apply for a permit, we can put them on a wait list, they can get their application in. But until we know whether or not there would be any available permits for 2025, so these 18 people have their time to apply. And if they don't, then we can allow for up to 74, or we can set it at 66. If they all don't do it, then, we add another 10. But people applying right now in that 3-month window should not be able to get a permit.
That's all I'm saying is I don't know.
But they are currently, that's like something you'd have to change the law to not allow, right? To not allow that. process.
I think this came up last year in terms of how the code enforcement office is. The permit is for, January until the end of December. So I don't know how they're processing applications. They might process them all at once. All I was trying to say is if we do a number, if there's any number, then if we put any number in, then it would just be for the new, that would be 5 new ones, and then everyone else would have to be a renewal. Or if it's 0,
Yeah, like,
it's,
because these are guaranteed, as long as those 18 renew, put in the renewals on time, it's guaranteed that we have 74 in town next year.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm saying. I think if we need to set it at 0 to do an adjustments and a balance back, because we've done nothing, but these have just increased every year. I don't think we've lost a bulk amount of short-term rental. I haven't seen a huge decrease in the
Yeah.
numbers the 3 years I've been on the board. They've done nothing but increase.
I guess I'm just trying to understand why we can't set it at 66 or 74. Our goal is to either allow everybody to renew or to have it at 2%.
Because that's the new cap for the net, because then the renewals don't count towards this. They get to do that no matter what.
I get it, but nobody should be applying for a new permit because we set it at 0 new permits for this year.
Well, no, we used a conditional, that's what I'm saying, that I don't know how that was applied, but we ended up with 74. So the way we did it last year was 66 in aggregate, meaning that if someone dropped off, a new application would be able to come in.
So that
And-
sounds like we just need to give the building department guidance on.
And I'm just saying, I don't know how they were doing that with, I just don't know. It doesn't say how applications get processed in this law, which is not usually what we put in laws, but.
Okay.
Do we want to pause, do another agenda item, come back?
Are you super opposed to 0, Michael?
I feel like whatever decision we make, it sounds like the issue is in how the permits are being issued, not the numbers. If we set it to 0, it could still get screwed up again. We could end up with 72 or 86 or whatever.
Well,
We need to figure that out.
We can set it at 0. I think go look at this law and rewrite it so that the cap is permanently in the law is no more than 2% of the residential properties on the assessor's roll. We don't have to make it that we set it yearly. We can change that in the actual law, so then that would keep it from ever going up.
If you set it to 0, there's not going to be any new permits issued at all. We didn't do that last year. If you set it to 0, there's no new permits.
And the perception is going to be that we're banning short-term.
Banning we're not allowing any new non-owner occupied ones. Owner occupied has nothing to do with any of this cap or these numbers of discussion.
I just think we're creating confusion for the public.
Well, what
Which
would
we're hearing.
you like to do?
Well, I'd like to get clarification on how the heck the law works. And then I think if we want to keep it at 2%, we just set it at 66 permits. And then if everybody renews, we tell the building department, any of these 18 are allowed to renew. Keep a list of anybody who applies who doesn't have one yet. And if some of that number does not apply, then we can go up to 66.
Mhm.
Like-
Yeah, I think that's what we were trying to do last year.
Yeah, so I just don't understand why, if 2% is what the board wants to do, then let's set it at 66%, because if we say 0, people are gonna be like, they're banning short-term rentals, not what we're doing. We're saying we're allowing up to 2%, or in this case, 74% if everybody renews, or 74 units. So
I don't want to leave the ability for that misinterpretation for a second.
But I think we need to talk to the building department.
But we're not allowed to direct the code enforcement officer how to interpret our code. So unless we
I
fix
don't,
the
just to be
code-
clear, I'm not sure. I don't know how, I'm just saying, when we talked about it last year, this is what we had this discussion about. Anyone who's renewing can renew. So if there was 89, maybe there was 89 last year,
89.
and now there's 74. So we did.
You could say that the cap for non-owner occupied is 66 short-term rentals, but those people who already have a short-term rental permit can still renew. So that way you can have these 18 renewals should they choose to. And if they don't, and we go down below 66, some people can apply for those spots.
Yeah, that's what we did that's why the language, but maybe we need to fix the language.
I think we should table this till there's.
Yeah, because we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about that 2% is the number.
I'm
It's-
not, because we're already over 2%, Michael. No matter what, we're guaranteed to be over 2% if all of them are new next year without the 10 available for the last.
But we can't change that because that's the way the law
We
is.
can, if we put it at 0, then no more will be, that's the maximum. And then if next year when we go to set the cap, if we get under 66, then sure, we can add that number above 60, back up to 66. But before that, this is 0 is the only way to guarantee that that doesn't.
I think also, I can see if I have the number. I think we had
With
89.
interpretations.
I think we had 89 last year, so I think we've actually lost 15. Sorry, I have that.
I think that this is the least confusing. I understand that they might think that we're banning them, but this is for enforcement wise and for interpretation wise, the easier route to go for enforcing it for our end of it. If we set it at 0, it's clear. It's not, we don't have to worry about if the wording, if we left out a comma somewhere for someone to not pause while they're reading it and interpret it and interpret the law differently than how we intended it. So I'm happy to talk about it with other board members.
The other way, we could just make it more complicated and we could say, so I'm looking, Charlotte, we lost 18 last year. So I think the number, that's what I remembered. The number did go down.
You mean between 2022 and 2023, we lost 18, or between
No,
last year and this year? you're saying?
These people were up for renewal, and these are all the people that did not renew. And 18 of those were non-owner occupied. Because I remember the number being around 90.
Yeah.
And now we're at 74. So I think we did actually reduce.
We reduced renewals, but 56 are new. So these people were either.
No.
one of those ones.
Those are all renewals. These are just the ones that
56 is
did
just
renew.
renewals. Okay, sorry, that's where I was misunderstanding.
Yeah.
I thought the 56 you gave were brand new.
No,
from the
no.
cap we set last
No.
year.
No, these are all people that got a renewal permit. These are all the people that didn't need to get a renewal permit, but they're up this year. And then these are all the people that we were considering in that, but these people did not renew.
All right, so those ones are eligible. So wait, what's the number of the ones that are up for this year?
18,
Out of the,
my formula got screwed up,
okay,
but it's 18.
okay.
So what I was gonna recommend is, this is what I hear the board saying, is the new non-owner occupied cap is 0 unless existing
Non-owner.
With the exception of existing.
unless the existing non-owner occupied STRs up for renewal is that renew is under the 2%, is under 2% total in aggregate with all operating non-owner occupied. Does that make sense?
Can you say it one more time now that
So-
you've written it?
The new non-owner occupied app permit number is 0. Unless non-owner occupied units that are up for renewal. Okay,
I'm following it. No.
Um,
I'm following.
that renew makes the total number of non-owner occupied units less than 2%. In which case, there would be permits available up to 2%.
Well, I think I think the building department's gonna have a tough time with that. And then do they have to, every time it falls, do they, as of that day, have to find out how many residential properties there are? Because that could change. I
Well,
think
we
if you
would
just
set-
put that number in there, should it fall
66.
below 66?
Right.
Other than that, you think it's
Because
fine,
you're
Mary Jo?
basing it on the numbers that you have today.
No, I think that's fine. I mean, I'm fine with this, if we wanna do the 66, I'm fine with that, but I don't think that phrasing was clear.
I think that was clear that the new cap is at 0. And that the renewal, the only, I followed it, but
You're
I.
not gonna persuade me to that.
what I'm trying to say is if if only 5 people from this list renew, then at that point, there would be 5 new permits available. But I'm trying to write it in such a way that we're saying you first have to see who's gonna renew within the window, and then you would reach out to the wait list.
Yeah, no, I understand what we're all trying to do here. I just don't know. I don't know if that language is going to make it clear.
Okay, you can suggest other language, I'm
I
not,
started to.
okay,
So I just think we say, whatever, however you started, the new owner occupied cap said,
Non.
the new, what?
not,
The
Non-owner.
new non-owner occupied cap is set at 66 units. Unless, with the exception of any existing permits that are up for renewal.
but that's just adding 66. Mary Lou,
What do you mean it's adding 66?
No, I think it's setting the cap for all non-owner occupied at 66, but those grandfathered people can still keep it.
you said.
I don't think it's adding 66. It's saying
Well,
the total number of non-occupied, non-owner occupied rental units is 66.
Okay, yeah,
Not
drop
that
the new.
66 can be added.
Okay, yeah, he said new.
You said
That's-
new, that's
I
why
was-
we were like,
Isn't that what you said that on your initial thing?
I said the cap is 0.
So the cap of non-owner occupied short-term rental units set at 66, with the exception of permits that are.
What, this is what we did last year, that, exactly what we did last year.
I don't see this like cumulative effect that people are talking.
The 2024, I might have derailed us with that. The 2024 short-term rental permits of non-owner occupied cap not to exceed 66 total units in aggregate, existing non-owner occupied short-term rental who renew their existing permits and meet local law requirements shall be allowed to operate above the 66 cap.
I
So-
think that's much clearer.
That's what we did last year. And
And you
I
ended
can,
up having a reduction.
and I can talk to, you know, as the department head, I can make sure that, and again, I might have derailed us because last year we weren't sure how they're granted, like, do they start getting granted during the application, or is it all, are all applications processed all at once? That's all I was bringing up, is I'm not sure. But we did lose total.
Motion to table.
yeah, second.
Aaron, why don't you run that language by the building department and make sure that.
Yeah, it's
you
what
know,
we
they
did
can
last
work with
year, yeah. I'll talk, so I will do that, and get all the numbers from last year that we were working with, so we can see if what we were just talking about actually is.
Yeah, and I would feel better if we're gonna talk in the workshop meeting, if you've had a conversation with the building department. They understand what the process is, so that we know that the number that we take or the percentage that we take is how it's going to be enforced. Public permits.
Yeah, that's the only reason I'm holding tight to 0 right now, is because I just don't want this.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, great, I will do that for you, Michael. I do not have a copy of this. So if anyone wants to read that, I didn't give myself, more to give them. Yeah, so then, yes,
Recommended resolution. Whereas Ulster County Veterans Services, the Department of the Ulster County Government, and the Ulster County Disabled American Veterans Organization have formally requested the town of Rochester support the placement of a sign on County Route 1, aka Lucas Avenue in the town of Rochester. The sign would state as follows: Ulster County Vietnam War Veterans Memorial Highway, and whereas as the largest population of veterans in Ulster County, the installation of said sign would be a way to honor those who fought for our freedom during the Vietnam War era. Vietnam War veterans have been historically overlooked and underappreciated, and this is an opportunity to show them that their sacrifices are and will continue to be remembered. And whereas Lucas Avenue in the town of Rochester is an Ulster County maintained road, now therefore be it resolved, the town board of the town of Rochester hereby supports the installation of a sign by the county of Ulster on Lucas Avenue in the town of Rochester stating, quote, Ulster County Vietnam War Veterans Memorial Highway, and be it further resolved, town clerk sent a certified copy of this resolution to the Ulster County Executive Jen Metzger, Ulster County Planning Director Dennis Doyle, and the Ulster County Veterans Services Director Mark A. Cosipoli.
Is there a second?
Well, I'll motion.
Oh, okay.
Totally
So
right.
Charlotte makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, for discussion, do you guys want me to explain or do you have a question?
Yeah, can we try?
Sure, this is a county road. They in this month, the legislature designated it the Ulster County Vietnam War Veterans Memorial Highway. We are one end and the town of Ulster is the other. The town of Ulster passed this resolution recognizing that and also allowing, this allows the county to put up the sign. So they would like to be able to put up a sign on our end at the other end, because they're like the two ends. So they said it, they'd like to, I think I don't know why Ulster County or town of Ulster knew about this in March. And we are finding out about it now, but I thought it's an easy, no-brainer.
So I
I sent a picture of the sign.
I think it's fine. The second paragraph, I feel like something's missing. It should say, whereas as the largest population of veterans in Ulster County are Vietnam veterans or veterans of the Vietnam War. I feel like something's missing there. Whereas as the largest population of veterans in Ulster County.
Well, it's saying that the largest number of veterans. I don't know.
I was gonna say, is that even, that's from the language of town of Ulster?
Yeah.
Because I don't think veterans, at least based off this statistic.
I think.
Oh, I thought it was in Ulster County, so we can take that out.
I would think that they were saying
and
they are.
This county, so whereas the installation of said sign would be a way to honor those who fought for our freedom during the Vietnam War.
Great,
Agreed.
so.
Sorry, as I was reading.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
So is that, so,
Motion
As a-
as amended.
okay. Christina, did you get that? Okay, so are we ready to call the vote? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Okay. So the highway roof repair contract, I have. I emailed that to you guys. And I have some notes from Mary Lou on, okay, so we are going to amend the contract because right now it says it's with the highway, not the town of Rochester. So that we're going to amend that. And then also add that the contract work should be completed by October 1st, which they can do it the first week of September, they said.
And that was in your request.
Yes.
That's the date you had in your request.
Yes, thank you, Mary Lou. And then they are supposed to send us, there's insurance requirements. And so I'm gonna make this motion contingent on these two, amendments and that we receive some required insurance. So so I'll go ahead and make it since I have these notes. I'll make the motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board authorizes the town supervisor to sign the contract with J&A Roofing to repair the town highway garage, contingent upon updating the contract to be with the Town of Rochester, and that all work will be completed by October 21st, 2024. And the receipt of proof of all required insurance certificates. And to pay the deposit in the amount of 1/3 the total cost upon signing. Any more discussion? Did you get all that, Christina?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained. And I have actually 3 vouchers for you guys. When we are done tonight, and that is one of them. Okay. Great. We're tabling the time and attendance quote because I didn't have time to get that award and contract. So now we are at scheduling public hearing. So, oh, did I send that? Yes, I did. The new version of local law G of 2024. Or last night, yeah. Okay, so did you guys look that over? Did that capture what we were? Last night? While Charlotte's looking, Mary Lou, on this one, are we? It's still local law G of 2024. And we're just scheduling, it's just scheduling a new public hearing for it.
Scheduling a public hearing because you've made some changes, yes.
Because we closed the other one already.
Right, so you can just schedule and publish.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you were good, Erin.
Okay. So, that we just need,
I'd make a motion to reopen the public hearing.
oh. Okay. So we have our audit meeting is when I was hoping to schedule the chapter 140 and 125. So we could do it then.
Sorry, what was the number?
29. Or we could set it for like our September meeting.
We have to. How long do you have to wait after we close the public hearing? To vote for this?
If you don't make any changes, you can vote.
We can vote right after we close it, so if we have it in September, we can vote on it in the same meeting if we so choose.
Yep.
Okay, I'm fine with September.
September 5th. Okay.
Which may be a workshop.
Oh. Okay, let's do that next.
That's fine.
Okay. All right, so I'd like to make a motion to reopen the public hearing for local law G of 2024 on September 5th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. at the Harold Lipton Community Center, and request the town clerk circulate it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay, so that one is. I love how excited you guys are that we're gonna start doing our workshop meetings first. I'm actually really excited about it.
I thought that. No, definitely, I bet.
Okay. So the next one, I circulated this back in early July. the chapter 140 zoning. Yes,
Meeting.
I circulated it back in July. I just forwarded it to you guys, so it's top of inbox. I actually have an insertion that I wanted us to look at. Mary Lou, I should say what this is, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's at the request of code enforcement and planning board.
So this is a practice that the planning board has had. And I'm proposing that we codify it. So there's a couple of ways we could do this. Basically, if there's a existing violation, what this does is mean that that if there's an applicant for a site permit or special use permit and they have an existing code enforcement violation, they wouldn't be allowed to get on the agenda unless they clear up that violation. There's another way to do it where they just can't get granted. They wouldn't be able to be granted their approval with an existing violation.
They could still go through the process and clean up the violation while they're going through the planning board process with the second option.
Is there a reason why, like, what's the town in this case?
I mean, what's the town?
In B2, you say including without limitation suspension of use town or code enforcement officer has alleged this in violation.
Well,
So
if the town, for certain violations, you can't just bring it to town court because all they can do is fine. If you want to close something down, for example, either the building department can bring an action in Supreme Court or the town board. We have both those options in our code. So that's why it says town or code enforcement.
So is the town sufficient to designate the town board, or should we just say the town board?
Yeah, you can say town board. That's a good idea. The town board or code enforcement.
So Aaron, how do you feel about that? In B2, instead of saying town, say town board.
I agree with you. In both spots, Michael.
Yeah, this has happened somewhere else.
It happens at the end of the sentence, the last sentence.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. So that's what we're saying, like the town board would have to vote and say, this is in violation and authorize it to be brought to court.
Right.
Okay.
So this, I just realized I messed up, but we have another, this is just one of the versions that I sent you guys.
Oh, you don't have the second one there?
I have the one that you did, but there's another way that just has a couple sentences different where they wouldn't be allowed to be on the agenda. So it's a little bit more like,
Planning board can't put them on the agenda.
yeah. But I
mean, this gives the building department the ability to make that decision.
Now, the building department only reports to the planning board whether there's a violation.
So the planning board could still consider it.
under
Depends
this,
which provision you decide to put in. There's two different
No, but
provisions.
the second version we don't have would prevent the planning board from being able to consider an application if there's an outstanding
yes,
enforcement. I think.
Correct.
you like that one better.
I think I like. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure this out. No, this is. Well, that's, and I don't. Discussion. About an application before us where there's an issue with this. I just don't.
Well, this
I
would,
don't know how I feel about it because how.
this
it
wouldn't
stands-
this wouldn't take into effect until we pass the code. Like this, it's just, this is what they've been doing. This is how this has been, the planning board can set their own operational procedures. And this is what they've been doing.
I'd like to table this till we have more board members' opinions on it. Because this,
So you can either set the public hearing, or you can wait till next week, because I think you'll still have enough time to set the public hearing if you make a change next week. Or you can set the public hearing for things as the law reads now, and you can always amend it in the future
you guys can, we can
as
put
a
it in
standalone.
how it is interpreted by the public. I don't like the pieces of where it's coming from. Feels discriminatory. So I don't want to delay our zoning process anymore, so if you guys are okay with the language
We can,
picked, I'm okay with it
We
going in.
do you guys want to table it and then let's schedule the public hearing? Or do you want to table scheduling the public hearing? I mean, I'd like,
We can't schedule this,
no, we
right?
can, if we were to add this in later, we'd have to,
Do another local law.
yeah.
You could still go through with your zoning, and then after you finally get to the
Oh, I
point
got
where
you.
you're
I mean,
able to
just do
pass
it.
zoning, you can do a new law with that amendment.
Yeah, that would make me feel better about it personally. If we try to do it that way, but whatever.
I think we should, schedule the public hearing for this on.
I'm fine with scheduling it. If we're
Yeah.
allowed to.
Yeah.
So should we do?
Michael,
Yeah, I'm fine doing that.
you are,
Yeah, and we have to get the zone, so people don't feel comfortable with this and want to revisit it. I think it's reasonable to say if you have violations, you can't apply to do stuff, but I'm
Yeah.
also fine voting on zoning. Or
Yeah, I'd rather just.
Going
take
through the
time to
process.
look At the basis of, I just wanna know other towns do it, like it just. I would like to do some homework on it. And if we could go without it, but yeah. I just.
that's fine.
okay, so I'd like to make a motion. Oh, what are we gonna call this now?
I don't know why it would be fine.
Are we wanna rename this local law J?
Is that where we're at?
Yeah, right, we're
I-
at H-I, yes, we're at J. and
J.
K.
And then K? Well, we'll get to subdivision. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to schedule a public hearing for local law J of 2024, amending chapter 140 zoning for August 29th, or yes, August 29th, 2024 at 6:30 PM at the Harold Lipton Community Center. And request the town clerk circulate notice.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained. Okay, so subdivision. We haven't changed anything in subdivision, so the public hearing for this local law 12 of 2023 is actually still open. So we can just continue
Local public hearing.
it through, we can continue it to August 29th, 2024.
Or doing it to the same date.
Same date.
You said August 29th.
Mhm.
Didn't we say the
Yeah.
fifth?
No,
So
we're
it's-
doing the local
Oh,
law
we're
G is the
closing
fifth.
it.
Local law G is the fifth, but that's chapter 140 and subdivision we're doing on the 29th.
All right, I'll make a motion to continue, reconfirm. What do I
No, you're
need?
just, you're continuing the public hearing for local law 12 of 2023. Or
Let me just double.
August 29th, 2024, immediately following the public hearing for local law J of 2024, and requesting that the town clerk circulate notice.
As Mary Lou said with local law 12 of 2023, presented by the town attorney. I make a motion.
Second.
Got that, Christina? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained. Okay, motion carries. Last item on our agenda. Okay. We've got the discussion / review of the workshop agenda. So, I just like building this together. So the things that we tabled are liaison reports and department updates. The supervisor financial report, which is just, I don't even have to read that, but I will. And we tabled the time and attendance item, so those will be quick.
Do you have anything else on there already?
We're gonna do the cap.
I just meant from a previous meeting, have we left anything on that?
Well, we have some, so, yeah,
What discussion
we
topics?
do, so I was gonna, so we wanna do the cap. We're gonna do the DeJager subdivision. And then we were gonna start talking about the scenic road / Main Street. Traffic patterns, which I was hoping that part of that discussion would be having a community information gathering session about that together instead of us.
We
Not
haven't
at the
scheduled
workshop.
that.
Not at the workshop, but I want to talk about that. Because Mary Lou's we did have requests to make scenic one way, and then we recently received feedback about how it would definitely change the traffic patterns, which was something I was thinking about. And just, I want to have a real holistic, community-centered conversation about that. But Mary Lou will be presenting if we were to go that route, she'll let us know what the process would be. And I think also we really reviewed on that, the stop sign crosswalk thing, but there's process. We'll be prepared to just understand the process for all of those things. And so that's what we have for that meeting. The outstanding things.
Schedule too. Whether we want to flip the meeting.
Oh, yeah, meeting schedule. Well, to take effect September 5th. So, and then I think, well, I presented the maps to you guys. One thing I was thinking is, since we initially had done the letter and the timing so that there would be a lot of time in between when people got the letter and when we scheduled the info sessions, and now that has all gotten eaten up with just waiting for information and being short-staffed. So I wanted to hold off on scheduling that public hearing, if that's okay. I thought it would be so rushed if we had everybody gets these letters and then we have info sessions and we've scheduled the public hearing. So I'm bringing that up because I could put that as a discussion item, or we could decide that we don't.
I agree with extending the timeline, because I don't want a repeat of what happened last time. But do we all still agree that we have to pass, if we're gonna pass 140 subdivision and the map, it all has to be passed at the same time?
I don't agree with that.
I don't think so, but I
'Cause that
think
was,
it also,
I never agreed with it either, but that was
What,
yeah.
I'm sorry, what's the third thing?
subdivision, zoning, and the map, and the zoning map.
He's asking like, do we really have to pass them all in the same night?
You really do, because they're all interconnected. There are things in zoning that refer to subdivision, things in subdivision that refer to zoning, and the map is everything.
But if the map, if the parcels, the only parcels that are new would be the community, whatever it was called, and the PL10. And if they don't exist in a zoning map, then even if they're in either subdivision or zoning code, it shouldn't matter. There's just no parcels that have been.
So
designated.
there's still somewhere else where they will exist. They still fall into their old zoning,
Yeah,
and those zoning areas all still exist.
correct.
Then that's okay. Then
Okay.
that's okay.
Yeah,
But
they'd still
definitely
be- they'd still be
subdivision and
subject.
zoning have
Yeah.
to be done together.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I have a question. That was the end of the, what you think it's on your list there. I just want to talk about the back, just to like keep it on the agenda, to kind of also remind myself. I've not got the quote attached in email, but like for the equipment and other stuff back there, just to kind of keep it on our minds while I try to actually get exactly what they want. And then I do want to request, I don't know if it has to be on the workshop meeting or an attorney meeting about our EEO code and the letters we received about it.
At that meeting?
At that meeting, I mean, I have a quick question. If it wants to be, if we can do it, if we're allowed to do it at the end of the meeting tonight, I'll ask.
About what letter? I'm sorry.
We received a couple correspondence about something to do with our EEO law. But it has to do with other board and committee members, kind of. That's why I wanted it to be an attorney. But I can
Yeah,
ask.
I mean, if you want if it's an attorney's meeting, we can do it via Zoom, and because it is my giving you advice and you asking for advice, even if people are out of town, they can participate through Zoom on that, because it's not subject to open meetings law.
Okay,
Or we could do that.
or could we do it? We don't have to schedule those in advance, right? Mary Lou, they're not.
Correct.
meeting laws,
Correct.
like,
If you
would
want to
they
ask
hang
me
for a
some
couple
stuff
of minutes,
tonight,
ask
I don't
you-
think I have these letters though, so.
Okay. Yeah, I can just pretty much, it's a pretty like generic kind of question, but I don't want to accidentally say anything
Okay.
that I'm not allowed
Sure.
to. Streaming, so.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll put the backyard cleanup and then,
Can we add the mail stuff, the email stuff? I'll try and.
The back up, so we're really from the-
okay, and then I don't want to lose this because it actually came up for me this week. But I'm gonna start drafting communications. Policy. Or and slash protocol. Okay,
that sounds like
that's a very full
that's a
agenda.
very full agenda for us. I know some of this stuff pretty quick, but.
Okay. Anything else for anyone? I forgot to give, I was very excited to give an update that I totally forgot about way at the beginning of the meeting, which is that the pavilion is getting repainted right now. And it's very exciting right now. It has primer on it. But it getting a fresh coat of paint on the benches and the pavilion itself is just, it's like very exciting because like, anyway, you guys
He's
should
doing
check it
it.
out. Mhm. Yeah,
Is it gonna be done for camp?
no, but it's not
He's
gonna be
working
wet. Yeah, we talked about no wet paint for the kids.
For the camp?
But the benches are a very pretty emerald green and they're really nice. Anyway, okay, I did forget, I was gonna make that, but people should see that process happen. It's fun. Okay, so, Charlotte, you're gonna do the in memoriam.
So I'd like to make a motion to adjourn in memoriam of Barbara Perry, Karen Nichols, Ryan Ebert, Marjorie Marles, Dudley, Sean Lawrence Carey, Olga Sawchuk, who's the previous owner of the log cabin. You'll remember Olga and her Porsche. Melanie Pavlik, George Rosado, Kenneth Blair Senior, Chester Skippy Vincent Schultes III, Christina, and Barbara Schlesinger also. So,
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to make the motion.
Make a motion to go into.
No. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn in memoriam.
oh, I made a motion.
Second.
Oh, you did make the motion. Oh, sorry. Okay, all right. That's it. That's our meeting. Yeah.
No workshop meeting today.
This is our regular business meeting.
I'm still so confused at how it all works. So what day is the workshop meeting where you continue to discuss?
So we talked about setting the cap on Thursday. So that's a week from today.
Next Thursday, but that's just a workshop meeting, so no public,
No public.
no
yeah.
public comment. Is there still an ability for open public comment?
You can always write to the board. You can send that to the town clerk and we receive that at any time. Yeah.
Cool. Can I ask questions now?
Well, I just requested an attorney meeting, so we have to ask everyone to leave.
Okay, I just really still, we're still like all confused about owner occupied and everything else. I mean, it does sound like a lot needs to be clarified, but I personally know a few people who were basically told that they could apply for permits like coming in October. So,
Yeah, that's when it opens.
yeah, but like because of the wording of the last law, like they were under the impression that there would be available, you know.
You guys, you've adjourned the meeting, and right now, with the questions, that could be considered conducting business in violation of open meetings law. So the best thing is for, her to either talk to you guys individually at some point or to write a letter. I just want to make sure you follow your process correctly to keep everybody out of trouble.